Hey everyone. So there's been a lot of new news coming up yesterday and today about, I guess, the overall finances of Overwatch, Blizzard, and Microsoft kind of all together. And I'm guessing because it's all coming out at the same time because we also got some news from what do you call them, Epic Games recently. So we'll get into that. So I wanted to talk about these things about their income and the layoffs that they announced today. So figures were released from an ex-employee of Blizzard, I believe, about the revenue that Overwatch 2 had made back in, I believe it was June. It was June or July. I think it was June. So the numbers he's showing are, I'm pretty sure, lower than what they actually made for the overall year because he left earlier than when the year was over. There's been other events that kind of took place and other releases and Battle Pass and all that type of stuff. So I'm also guessing that the fiscal year of Overwatch or Blizzard starts in October 1st, like most companies. So this would mean that this is the first 3 quarters of the fiscal year, because that's what most companies do. That's what their fiscal year is in the government, in many companies, and all that. I don't know why, but that's what it is. So again, these numbers I'm sure don't reflect the last quarter of their fiscal year. So the figures. So first, the figures is that they made $225 million in revenue. And sorry if you're not one of the several people that think this is a lot of money, but I feel like I have to say this anyways because this is kind of one of the things that made me make the video. $225 million in revenue, for me, looking at Blizzard, doesn't seem like a lot of money, right? Because a lot of people, what I've seen, they're like $225 million. And on top of that, they're, letting people go. That's a lot of money. Like corporate greed. It's American corporate greed is what everybody is saying. But it seems like, and I guess a lot of people are probably younger, so they don't understand that, revenue isn't your profits. Revenue is just kind of how much money was brought in, right? It's not counting in everything you needed to spend to be able to make that amount of money. So yeah, I'm looking at these numbers like that's actually like pretty low, like surprisingly low. Because if Blizzard has like, let's say 1,000 employees that they pay, let's say they pay them $70,000 a year or something like that, which $70,000 a year is not. It's like a fine income depending on where you live. And I'm guessing most of these people live in California, especially if you live in California where the cost of living is like, it's ridiculous. It's like insanely high, kind of like Hawaii. But I would imagine Hawaii is probably more expensive though. I don't know. But if you're paying them $70,000 a year for 1,000 employees, that's like $70 million you're paying, right? And that's just like paying them their salaries. And I'm going to assume that most people listening to this video probably have never owned a company before because I guess most people in general haven't owned a company before. But there's a lot of costs per person when you have them. It's not just what you pay them like for their salaries, right? There's things like healthcare you have to pay for. There's paid time off. There's 401ks. There's IRAs. And something I didn't know until I owned a company was when you have an employee, right, you get taxed when you pay them, right? So the employer is getting taxed while you pay them, and then the employee receiving the money gets that amount taxed from him too. Not the same amount, but actually I don't even know if it's the same amount. But is it? No, I don't think it was the same amount. But so 2 people are getting taxed to pay 1 person, which when I found that out, I thought that was ridiculous. I was like, what the heck? I have to pay the government to pay my employee, and then he has to pay the same person too. I thought that was kind of crazy, but it is what it is, I guess. But yeah, anyways, the last one had nothing to do with this. That still bothered me. Like thinking back about that, I was like, well, what? What? So anyways, what I've seen in my job, current and like before, is if somebody's getting paid, let's say like $60 an hour, like that's how much money they are getting from their paycheck. The company is actually paying like something closer to like $100 to $110 an hour for that person. And then that's not even, considering things like the facilities, the material, the marketing, and a bunch of other things. So even with a low number of employees, like $1,000, I mean 1,000 people making 70,000 a year, that's taken out a bunch from their 225 million of revenue, right? Just $1,000, 1,000 people making 70,000 a year. That's that's $70 million. That's a crazy amount of money. And actually, I just looked up how many people actually work in under Blizzard. I think I looked up specifically Overwatch. And it's like 13,000 people. Bro, that's a ton of people. Honestly, this money doesn't make sense. This doesn't make any sense. Because if they have 13,000 people working for them, and then they're paying each of them something, let's say 50,000 in this scenario, that's $650 million. I hope that number's right. I just Googled it. That's crazy. Because if you have 13,000 people, you're paying them 50,000 each, that's $650 million. Like, something's not adding up here, but and again, we're not counting in marketing, benefits, facilities, all that other stuff. So that's actually very strange. I'm not really sure how that works. I'm sure they have different avenues of money, but still, that's actually very, very strange. So yeah, with this in mind, if you compare the money Overwatch 2 made to the amount of money that Overwatch 1 made in the first year, it seems like they are making significantly less despite having more players. Now, they have more players because the game is free, right? That makes sense. But less money? That's also kind of weird because this model was made for them to be able to, I guess, aggressively and greedily, with their horrible pricing system, just get a bunch of money from here and there from like several million people playing the game, which is currently at 50 million players, or active players, however they describe it. So yeah, that's a little strange also, and maybe these numbers aren't completely accurate. And again, these aren't all the numbers, right? There's a whole final quarter, but yeah, and I'm not gonna lie, I loved the loot system back in Overwatch 1. I think a lot of people were okay with it. I know here and there, some people were like, it's gambling for children and all that type of stuff, and it was banned, I think, in Australia or something. And then China had forced them to release the code of how they do it and everything. But I think overall, most people were okay with it because I had friends who had never bought a loot box, and they played the game so much they received almost everything they could in the game. But it would be interesting if they made more money in a market where people buy the game first and then can opt into purchasing a loot box, or kind of like, playing a game of chance and getting the loot box, where those same things are free if you just play the game, compared to their new model where they just give the game to everybody and then kind of force them to pay $20 for skins and an empty battle pass. That's actually something that's research worthy, that I would be very interested if somebody like analyzed that to see kind of what's happening there. But yeah, also, it's still new, right? I think they're still figuring out their monetization system, which is why they said they were changing it. Maybe it was Microsoft that made them do it, or all these other things. Who knows what ended up happening with the Overwatch League. I'm pretty sure they probably lost more money because I think everybody was losing money, which is one of the reasons why they turned it all off. But and a video is coming in about the new Overwatch League system, something I'm very excited for. But yeah, anyways, it's still new. It's been a year. They're slow at everything. It's still new, so maybe they might get it right this year and start making more money, because the more money they make, the more things they can do for us. Now, how they use that money, if it's for bad, American corporate greed, as all these British YouTubers are calling it, that would be a bad thing. But generally, if you want the game to keep going, you kind of want them to be able to support themselves and their employees, which actually goes straight into the next topic.
I would like to interrupt this video to ask you to like and subscribe. If you made it this far in the video, chances are you kind of like what I'm talking about. So, help me out, guys.
So now with that in mind, let's look into the news that broke out today about these layoffs that are happening in, I guess, not just Overwatch or Blizzard, but Microsoft. So they stated today that they're letting go of 1,900 employees, 1,900 employees. And as expected, a bunch of YouTubers went in front of their cameras and blamed it to corporate greed. American corporate greed is what they keep saying, and kind of what irks me a bit, being American. And, they said it was heartless and said things like throwing them out of the door, with nothing, and ignoring the effects that it has on their families and just kind of all that kind of stuff. And I do think that, losing your job is horrible. If anybody there has ever lost their jobs, you know how risky and horrible it could be, especially if you have a family you're supporting, if you have a kid or something, because I don't think anybody really has savings anymore like that. And if you do, great, but a lot of people don't. And everybody's living paycheck from paycheck, and the economy has been complete dog shit for the last 2 years. So it's a very bad time to lose your job right now. But I want to keep things grounded or realistic about, what people are saying about this. So I'm going to break this down to kind of show why I don't think this is just corporate greed happening. I think there's a lot of things feeding into this. So we don't have everybody just pointing fingers as, oh, it's just evil. Bobby Kotick is gone, but they're still doing the same type of thing. It's like, no, I don't. I think it's more than that. So first of all, the statement said that Microsoft is laying off 1,900 people in their gaming division, which includes Blizzard. Well, that doesn't mean it's just Blizzard, right? And the reason I feel like I have to say this is because that's kind of like what a lot of other people on the internet were implying, or at least kind of making it vague and just kind of speaking about Blizzard themselves, which is it's not accurate, right? And Microsoft gaming division is huge. It's huge. Like they have a lot of people there. And I looked it up, and so they have like 22K people. So about 8% of their workers got laid off, which is a ton of people. That's actually a fuck ton of people. But it's across several things, right? It's not just Overwatch. It's not just Blizzard. However, I think that blaming this on corporate greed isn't fair. Because for starters, and I guess we're going to go down each of the reasons why, I guess right now, the economy, again, has been horrible for the last 2 years, even factoring in the after effects of COVID. Like, it's been complete dog shit in almost every single way. Like, Microsoft is doing layoffs. Epic Games, I think they previously laid off 16% of their workforce. I'm trying to buy a house right now, and it's essentially impossible with these interest rates. And I think interest rates just kind of went down. Well, I'm not going to get into all that kind of stuff. But what I'm paying for my car has gone up. Some of my friends who have like student loans, what they have to pay monthly has gone up by like $100. Groceries are stupidly expensive. And you guys know, like, gas and just all your bills in general, everything has gone up by a lot. What you could buy before for like $1 today costs $1.20. So this is across the board for everybody, not just video games, not just, Blizzard, not just Microsoft. Everybody's kind of going through it right now. Me personally, my friends personally, you guys personally. So yeah, and especially the tech industry is being hit harder than most industries from what I've seen. And I'm really deep into the tech industry, right? I'm an electric engineer, right? I've seen everything. I did programming, I did robotics, I've done everything. All my friends are in the tech industry. So they're all getting fired. Like, everybody's getting laid off from Google, Amazon, Twitter, Facebook, military defense contractors, and all that type of stuff. I know all of them. There's layoffs happening everywhere. I have one friend who got on is on disability because some horrible shit happened to her, but she was thinking about getting back into the workforce, and she's a programmer. And then one of my buddies called her up and was like, don't go into the tech industry right now. You're gonna get fired like within 3 months or something crazy like that, because everybody's letting everybody go right now. Like, the economy is just garbage right now. So just stay and keep collecting your disability checks, because one, you're disabled now, but two, it's a dog eat dog world out there right now. And secondly, layoffs happen whenever there's a merger, right? Like, whenever a company merges with another company, there's a lot of redundancies that they don't want to pay for. And that's a normal thing, right? I'm sure that when Microsoft acquired Blizzard, Blizzard had an accounting department or something like that. I'm sure Microsoft also has an accounting department. So maybe they don't need 2 accounting departments, like things like that. And, you can kind of spread that in several different ways, but that's a big normal thing that happens when companies merge. So again, not corporate greed necessarily, but just normal business that's not evil. Right? It's not just American corporate greed as that's all these British YouTubers are talking about. They're also blaming capitalism. What's the thing that guy said? I forget what it was, but it was like, oh, American capitalism is what's ruining these blah 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 blah. And it's not a structural problem necessarily, at least in this scenario. Well, even in most scenarios, like even if you go to socialism or any other structure that people have, money always flows to the top. Like if you have a guy at the top who's trying to spread everything equally, that only happens if you're in Wakanda. But normally people are just greedy people, right? You get a guy who's always going to be at the top, who's going to try to suck up some of the money to give to himself and his friends. It's not a capitalism, socialism problem. You're not going to get rid of this problem by going to socialism or something. It's just a human problem that always exists. But anyways, that's a different conversation. And lastly, they stated that they're helping these ex-employees find new jobs and give them a severance. And I'm not sure how much the severance is, but I think generally it's maybe a year. I've seen a bunch of things. I've seen 6 month severance. I've seen a year severance. I've seen 2-year severance. But point is, they're not just kind of throwing these people out the door like many people have been saying. I do think that there is some remorse for this, and they made the public statement, which they didn't really need to do. Well, maybe they did because marketing reasons. But I do think that they're trying to help these people who lost their jobs in the way that they can. And it's just, I don't know, everybody's just going through this shitty economy right now. So, what are you gonna do? Because when I had my business back in college, before I went to grad school, I was gonna shut everything down, and I took care of my employees, right? Granted, it wasn't that many employees. I had 3, yeah. But I covered their rent. I helped them find jobs, and I gave them a small severance thing with the money I had left over after the whole endeavor. But because I looked ahead and saw that, hey, the way I can help them now is to give them this, which is going to cost me less than, continuing this operation and essentially just running out of money, and then everybody's kind of fucked, right? So that's really all you can do. And I think it seems like they've taken the best approach to this. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it for the video. And again, I'm not saying corporate greed doesn't exist. It does, and it's disgusting, and you see examples of that every day. Especially when I was much younger, before I started, I had a stable job or got really far in my career. I was one of those people screaming out, nothing is fair, because you don't really see a way to climb, right? You don't really see, it's almost like there's nothing you can do to get better no matter how hard you work. When you're really broke, and I used to be very, very broke. Because you watch TV and you go on the internet and you see people making millions of dollars doing nothing, and you're you got the Kardashians, you got people who, let's say they doing all these other things, and you're like, why can't, if they're making millions of dollars doing nothing a month, and I'm here making what, $500 a month, you kind of, you get a little, corporate greed, or you get the rich eat the rich type of stuff. And I get that. I've been there before, but you grow up and you see it's not that simple. Or the Kardashians, maybe. But it is what it is. It's just that sometimes even people at a certain level, let's say the successful YouTubers, who've been kind of making videos for several years, and they're making, after promotions and sponsors and Patreon and things like that, they're making $1,000 a video, while they only need to be making all they need to make a video is their computer and their camera, and they kind of get a little out of touch, kind of all rich people. So I think that's a little bit of what's going on there, because they start to feel bad for people who don't have what they have, but then don't realize why things are the way they are. So to get off of my soapbox, sorry, this one got a bit political, but you're talking about jobs and finance and things like that. It kind of bleeds into the whole political thing. So anyways, tell me why you think I'm wrong, or tell me why you agree, and don't forget to like and subscribe and leave a message for the algorithm. And also don't forget, I love you. Even you Brits, right? You guys gave us Harry Potter, and my brother loves that shit. So, thank you, I guess.